Welcome to the British Library, where a very special portrait commission is about to be unveiled. It's a painting of the distinguished novelist Hillary Mantel by the winner of the first Sky Arts Portrait Artist of the Year competition, Nick Lord.
I, like everyone here, am very, very keen to see what lies behind the red cloth. So I'm going to hand over to Nick Lord to unveil the portrait. Thank you.
Nearly 2,000 artists from all over Britain and Ireland competed for this commission, which included a cash prize of £10,000 and a chance to have the commissioned portrait hung here in the British Library and for it to become part of the library's permanent collection.
The winner of the Sky Arts Portrait Artist of the Year is Nick Lord.
We're going to follow Nick Lord every step of the way as he strives to fulfil this life-changing opportunity. From the first meetings with his famous sitter, through his approach to the challenge, the progress of the painting, right up to this wonderful unveiling. But first, a reminder of how he got here. At 25, Nick was one of our youngest competitors and earned his living in his father's model railway business in Cardiff. It was here that he was among the semi-finalists chosen to paint a portrait of Welsh rugby player Gavin Henson in just 4 hours, and to do it in public, under scrutiny from judges, fellow painters and cameras.
It's beautiful the way you put the paint on. It's very unusual. I think it's a very surprising piece of work. Well done.
Thank you.
He then joined fellow regional winners to paint model and writer Sophie Dahl in Paris.
Oh, wow.
And in a final task, a commission to paint Victoria Cross hero Lance Sergeant Johnson Bahari. The judges were hugely impressed with Nick's arresting portrait.
This man has been through a terrible incident that's shredded him, and he's been patched together again by Nick.
And now for Nick's greatest challenge yet. Just days after being named Portrait Artist of the Year, Nick is on his way to the British Library to see where his commissioned portrait of Hillary Mantel will hang.
I'm so excited, and it's such a prestigious award as well, and to have my work in the British Library as well is going to be amazing. I wouldn't say it's a daunting sort of prospect. I just want to get into it, really sink my teeth into it.
The British Library houses the historic manuscripts used by Hillary Mantel for her 2 acclaimed Booker Prize-winning novels about Thomas Cromwell, Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies.
The idea of a writer's portrait is tricky because what can you show? But there seems a meaning infused into it by the fact that it's going to be in the British Library, which is such a magnificent work of art in itself. It's a building I love. It would be just wonderful to be a tiny part, to be almost built into the fabric of the building, if you like.
Although the library is giving Nick free rein with his commission, seeing the exact location will affect his approach to the painting.
We don't have many portraits of authors, we have a few. I think it will be the first painting we have of a living author, so it's a first for us in that sense, and a very welcome addition to our collections of works of art.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, well, it's a great space. It's got a great view of, well, from down there up here. How many people use the library then?
Well, the library as a whole, I think we have around about 4,000 people a day, certainly over 1 million a year.
So no pressure on my half then to mess it up.
I'm sure it'll be a remarkable image when it's completed.
Yeah, I'm a bit apprehensive on what I'm going to do. Usually I'm used to sort of working with quite a crisp, clean wall behind, but the fact that it's brick and you sort of have the sort of different shadow and that sort of texture, if I'm not careful, it will interfere with the painting. I've already been thinking about what I was going to sort of do, but I'm going to have to reassess that, and it's back to the drawing board, I think, for me, for this.
But first, a trip to Devon to meet his famous sitter.
Well, during the competition, it's been a complete nightmare for me in the fact that I've had to paint in public. I find painting a very personal experience, and I hate painting in front of people. I'm looking forward to this painting to actually have my own time with it, work on how I want to work on it, and not necessarily just with the judges in mind.
Hillary Mantel moved to Budleigh Salterton on the Devon coast 3 years ago, and it's where she's currently at work on the final part of her trilogy of novels about Thomas Cromwell.
I'm very interested in this whole idea of being painted because portraiture is at the heart of my Cromwell trilogy. What I hope for is I don't want to be just a sitter. There's a lot in that word, isn't there? It suggests a certain inertia. I want to be part of the creative endeavour, if I can. I want to be part of the process of it.
It's clear to see that she's very descriptive in the way that she writes, and she's amazing at sort of creating those sort of like visual sort of effects in your head when you're reading. So I'm really looking forward to finding out more about her. Hi, Hillary.
Hello, come in.
Is there anything in particular you want, or have you got an idea of how you'd like to be portrayed or sort of depicted in the painting? Or have you not really sort of thought about it as such?
I don't have a set of expectations. I just have an open mind. It doesn't really seem to matter what a writer looks like because they're a blank canvas for all the people who walk around inside their head. But I suppose I'd like to have a light in my eye. I'd like to look as if I was thinking, as if a process was going on. How big's it going to be?
The maximum size I can go for is 1.10 m by 1.10 m. So for me, that's quite small. And squares usually present challenges composition-wise. So it'd be quite interesting to sort of see how it works.
Sounds huge to me.
Yeah,
I suppose I was sort of hoping you were a miniaturist and I could hide.
No, it's
but not so.
No, it's probably. I'd like to get you sort of life size.
Can I hold a pen?
Yeah.
It's just occurred to me because I'm almost never without a pen in my hand. And it's like having a sixth finger, you know?
Yeah.
It's part of my hand.
Yeah, no,
I'd really like to do that.
That would be perfect. Yeah, no, I think that chair would work really well. It's got a bit of character to it.
I'm very fond of this chair, yes.
Nick's process involves getting to know his sitter and then taking photographs to determine the right pose and expression.
Because you were twiddling the pen at the time, so you could tell you. The photography is an essential tool, but it's not just a case of, oh, taking a photo, that'll do. It's setting the pose, working with the pose, and I'm not taking a photo, I'm taking a photo of a painting. I'm really happy with those.
It's a process that's already served Nick well, enabling him to capture extraordinary likenesses of his subjects while experimenting with materials and technique to give a more contemporary twist. After processing the images of Hillary, he returns to Devon with a selection of his favourites.
I really like this one because it's quite. I really like the hands, and the fact you look engaged there. You look like you're thinking about something, and I like the fact that it's quite clean in the background. You've got the chair in. I don't know that this is where it'd be good to sort of like your sort of opinion on whether you prefer, or which one you sort of prefer.
I think I have a default expression, which is wistfulness, which is to be avoided, possibly. What none of us women want, I suppose, anymore is an image of passivity or a victimhood. What I would like to put across, I suppose, is that I'm looking at the future. Can we look at one or two more, and I can probably
there's still
say...
some that we haven't looked at. So these ones I quite like as well, but I still find them very formal.
I do actually like that one.
It's quite, I think, it's like a swagger pose, and it's very grand. I think this one, it's quite status-like, I think.
Yes. I like the idea of having a swagger portrait. I'm such an unswaggery person that
Oh, I don't know.
it might be...
Got your gold chain, you got the gold scarf.
Yes. A swagger portrait of a writer.
Yeah.
That's something that's not been done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes. The more I think back to our conversation earlier about choosing the image, the more our choice seems right, because I think it's the way I am now after the Cromwell books as opposed to the way I was 10 years ago. So I think this is right. It seems to me there's a point in your life when you hear an inner prompt and it says, choose your weapons. This is it, mightier than the sword.
It's such a relief that she's so lovely, she's so nice. It just meant then that connection that we had when we were sort of talking, it was just so natural to actually meet her and find out what she wants was fantastic.
And we'll be with Nick as he returns to Cardiff and embarks on his swagger portrait of Hillary Mantel.
I've been in the studio for just over 2 years. And the fact now that I've sort of won the competition, it means that I can stay here without having to worry about sort of paying rent for the next couple of years. So that financial pressure is off. So it basically means now I can afford to paint what I want to paint. Yeah, so I'm going to start mixing the paint now. But I always sort of start with it's a brown, but I mix red, yellow, and then a tiny bit of blue, and I use that as my base for sort of future colours. I don't know why, but I always start with the chin and the lips. Don't know why. I just always seems to just be drawn into there. And I think it's because you can sort of see it. And I really enjoy drawing the eyes, so I paint them last. So I do. I suppose it's like when you eat your dinner, you eat the things you don't like first. So like Christmas dinner, you eat your Brussels sprouts first because you don't like them. So I eat them first, and then you get everything else to look forward to.
Having finished his Brussels sprouts, Nick moves on to concentrate on getting the skin tone right and refining the eyes.
These lines here, I think, are working really well. Just like these lines here and that line, like, and then sort of you can get that. You just get like the flow of the face. Yeah, Hillary's got a really sort of smooth complexion, and the contrast between the tones is really hard to sort of differentiate between the two. So for me, it causes problems, and sort of to try and sort of find them and sort of get I suppose the sort of the transitional tone. I mix the acrylic paint with a gel medium and a copolymer gel. When it's so thin, you can just keep applying it and build up the different layers, and they shine through each other. You get this lovely sort of texture. It starts to create its own sort of like structure on the face, which I really like. Yes, I'm happy with that mark. That's working well. The main reason I choose to paint on blue, it doesn't have to be blue. It could be any colour, really. I find blue works well for me, especially when painting lighter sort of skin tones. But it also allows you, well, for me, the most important thing is it allows you to bring white into the painting, whereas when it's raw canvas, it's quite a creamy sort of colour. For me, it helps bring the image out as well.
For Nick, the eyes and facial expression are crucial if he's to capture the sense of engagement Hillary was keen on.
Just trying to bring out the eye a bit more, so sort of, I'll get the darker tones in first, and then bring in The lighter sort of highlights the catch light in the eye as well, sort of really brings the eyes out, and she really does look engaged. Her eyelashes are really dark brown, sort of bluey browny, and then the sort of the ring around her eyes as well. So I know then that's one of the darkest things on the face. So it just means for when I sort of start to put all the subtle tones, not to go too crazy with it.
Back in Devon, Hillary is grappling with a different kind of portrait as she works on the third part of her trilogy of books about Henry VIII's advisor Thomas Cromwell, famously painted by Hans Holbein.
The whole subject of portrait painting is knitted into my Thomas Cromwell trilogy. Holbein is himself a character. He's the man who gave the Tudor court a face. In the first book, Holbein comes to paint Cromwell, but you don't see the painting happening. And then you see the picture being shown, being unveiled, and you get Cromwell's reaction to it, and the reaction of the bystanders. And then in the second novel, the portrait is being copied, and Sir Cromwell comes into his hall and he finds copies of the paintings, and he is in various stages of becoming. One's got hands, one's got a hat, one's got his work table, but you don't add them up. They don't add up to a man. That's where I am in my project. I'm assembling an image. Then in the final book, we will go into that room with Cromwell sitting for Hans Holbein, and we will find out what happened in that room. So this, to me, is part of the creation of my work. It dovetails magnificently. There are 2 scenes involving portraits in the new book. And I've worked on both those scenes since we started this process. So, yes, it's just, it's bound straight into the book.
Having painted the hands and hair, Nick is now ready to tackle the scarf. It's an opportunity to use different materials and techniques.
The more you experiment and the more you find how different materials work and how different mediums work, for me, I think it's all part of the painting process. And I'm interested in how to create the images by using different mediums and different materials to what I've used before. Using spray paint, using wood stain, using oil pastels and on top of acrylic, and then using acrylic and the different mediums and to create different surfaces. I think it does give it that sort of contemporary edge because it's not something you would traditionally see in a portrait. Just cutting out the template now for the pattern on the scarf, and I'll just touch it up then with the brush because I think it might be a bit too bold. I've never attempted this before, so it could go terribly wrong, but never know unless you try. I described it as a swagger pose to Hillary because I sort of wanted to capture that sort of confidence that she has, and I suppose to capture her accomplishments. But I don't mean it in the way of sort of like Van Dyck's paintings of King Charles I, and how they were sort of like depicted with wealth and everything. I don't mean it in that sort of sense. I just mean it in the fact that they're confident sort of pictures, they're confident paintings. The gold scarf as well, I think it all sort of ties in. It's quite in your face. It's just a confident sort of piece of clothing as well. As far as the drips go in the painting as well, it's sort of, some of them are mistakes, some of them I don't want them to be there, but they've just happened. But then sometimes I'll purposely hold the spray can down so it drips in one place, and then I'll move it along slowly so it's constantly running. For me, it adds that other element of it not being overworked. And I suppose it also asks questions of why haven't I painted more? Why hasn't he done more? I use the photos as how I view them as sketches for the painting. But I think a painting, you get a sense of feeling from what the sort of the person was thinking when they were painting it, and because you can physically see the way they've manipulated the paint on the canvas, whereas you don't see that with a photo. I think when painting, you definitely have that sort of the pressure on who you're painting and sort of whether they're going to like it, especially when it's someone you sort of get along with so well. And it's getting to that stage now where I can sort of see the finishing line as such, so I just hope that when she sees it, that she'll like it as much as I'm liking it at the moment.
A few weeks later, Nick is back at the British Library for the unveiling, when Hillary will see the portrait for the first time.
I couldn't be more delighted. I'm absolutely thrilled. And I do congratulate you. And I think it was a very fitting outcome to our negotiations, because it was work together, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And may I say, it's been an absolute pleasure to watch you work and to go through this process with you. Deeply interesting.
It just feels wicked. I'm just over the moon at Hillary's reaction, because it's just fantastic.
Hillary, does it capture what you hoped it would capture about yourself?
I think it does. It's got some strength, it's got some humour, and best of all, it looks as if I'm just going to write something down. That's what it's all about.
Well, I think if someone said to me last year that I was going to have a painting in the National Portrait Gallery and then in the British Library as well, and have won the competition, I probably would have just told them to jog on, or sort of like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, it's just so surreal. I could never have dreamt to be where I am now.